Welcome to the edge. Welcome to the fire. Welcome to the place where the weak get broken and the determined get born. This isn't a call to ease or a comfort zone monologue. This is a reckoning. Because somewhere along the line, you didn't choose the easy route. You didn't back off when the world snarled. You flipped nightmare mode on, and you never turned it off. And for that, you're not like the others. You're not normal. You're forged in chaos, and you walk with purpose through storms others pray to avoid. You see, most people only visit the dark. They dip their toes into discomfort, flirt with difficulty, then retreat to comfort the second it burns. But you stayed. You looked at the grind, the pressure, the endless weight of expectation, and said, let it come. When they asked who activated nightmare mode mid-match, they didn't realize it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a glitch. It was you stepping into your element. You weren't overwhelmed. You were evolving. The difference is clear now. The moment you chose to go beyond limits, you stopped waiting for life to hand you anything. You stopped apologizing for wanting more. You accepted that you'd bleed. You accepted that you'd suffer. But you knew that there was something sacred in the struggle, the kind of sacred that turns bones to steel, that grinds hesitation into precision, that burns away the illusion of safety and replaces it with raw, unfiltered growth. They never saw the nights you stayed up when everyone else slept. They didn't see you dragging yourself out of failure after failure with no guarantee of success. But you did it anyway, not because it was fair, not because it was easy, because it was necessary. Because nightmare mode isn't a punishment to you. It's home. It's clarity. It's where the noise fades and only the mission remains. This journey isn't about applause or recognition. It's about a different kind of silence. The silence of knowing you did the impossible when nobody was watching. That you made peace with pressure. That when the walls closed in, you didn't panic. You pushed back. And now, every scar, every bruise, every setback is your signature. Proof that you didn't flinch. You didn't run. You rose. There's a reason people can't understand you. They weren't there when it broke you, when life cracked you open and tried to bury you under your own doubts. But you didn't break. You rebuilt. Stronger, smarter, hungrier. You flipped that switch and didn't look back. Because in nightmare mode, there is no retreat. Only recalibration. Only forward. You became the kind of person that makes pressure uncomfortable. You bring chaos to order. You're not waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel. You became the fire inside it. And when people ask how you keep going, how you keep showing up, how you keep getting back up, they miss the point. It's not about keeping up. It's about never backing down in the first place. You're not here to fit in. You're here to break patterns, to build legacies out of bruises, to rewrite every doubt into discipline. Because you didn't just turn nightmare mode on. You rewired your soul to operate there. You walk where others won't even crawl. You carry weights they call impossible and make it look effortless. And you do it without expecting applause. Let them be confused. Let them whisper. Let them question. Because while they're talking, you're building, you're pushing, you're transforming pain into precision. You've become so adapted to the fire that even the flames flinch when you step in. That's what happens when you refuse to turn it off. When you refuse to compromise, when every sunrise is another war to win, and you welcome it. They said you were overdoing it. They said it wasn't sustainable. They said you should slow down. But that's only because they've never been forced to find out who they are with nothing left. You have. And you didn't just find yourself. You built yourself. You became the storm. And now they watch in disbelief. But disbelief doesn't stop you, it fuels you. This isn't about motivation anymore, it's about identity. This is who you are now, this is what you chose, and there's no going back. You operate in the realm where most people break. That's your normal, that's your baseline. And when others panic in pressure, you breathe deeper. Because the grind isn't killing you, it's revealing you. There's a cost to this path. Relationships fade, comfort disappears. There's no map for where you're going, only instincts, grit, and fire. But those who stay in nightmare mode long enough, they don't just survive, they dominate, they outlast. They become legends in silence and thunder in execution. And now, it's your move again. The world's still trying to catch up. But you're already 2 battles ahead. They're asking who flipped nightmare mode mid-match. But they don't understand. This isn't a mode. This is your mission. This is your life. This is your choice. And you're not turning it off. Not now. Not ever. They keep staring because they're still trying to define you by their limits, by their timelines, by their comfort-based logic. But you left those definitions behind long ago. You didn't ask for permission to level up. You bled your way through barriers. You weren't handed anything. Every ounce of progress was carved from discipline. Every inch forward was a war. And while they measured progress in likes and validation, you measured it in sweat, silence, and sacrifice. They can't track your pace because you don't move by motivation anymore. You move by conviction. You don't need to be in the mood to execute. You just do it. And that's what separates you. While they wait for the perfect time, you make time obey you. While they need reasons, you move on principle. You keep showing up because that's who you are now. You keep striking forward, even when it's dark, even when it hurts, even when your legs scream and your heart begs for relief. Because you trained yourself to operate under pressure. You trained yourself to find peace inside the pain. You see, nightmare mode doesn't just hurt, it humbles. It exposes the gaps in your will. It doesn't flatter you, it forces you to evolve. And you leaned into that. You chose not to numb the pain, but to learn from it. And now, your endurance terrifies them. Your consistency confuses them. Because while others chase peak moments, you've made a lifestyle out of the valley. You didn't need a crowd. You didn't need applause. You needed the edge, the chaos, the friction that forges real greatness. And now you stand here, not perfect, but permanent. Not loud, but lethal. You became the person who doesn't wait for the world to change. You changed yourself so drastically, the world had no choice but to adjust. They still think it's temporary. They still think it's a phase. But this is no phase. This is your default setting now. The switch isn't broken. It's buried. And no one's reaching it. Not now, not ever. Because when you live in nightmare mode, you don't just build strength. You build silence. You build stillness under fire. You build eyes that don't blink in chaos. You stop reacting. You start calculating. You stop proving and start producing. And now you're the one they watch when the pressure rises. Now you're the one they wait to see fall, and you keep standing, you keep pushing, and they hate that. They thought you'd burn out, but you became the burn. They thought the stress would break you, but you became the pressure. They thought you'd fold when the resistance showed up, but you welcomed it like an old friend, because you've been here before. You've suffered before. You've fought your way out of darker holes with less strength. So, this isn't your breaking point. This is your arena, your proving ground, your rise. So no, You don't panic when things get hard. You sharpen. You silence. You step into the rhythm of war because it's not unfamiliar to you. It's home. Every setback, fuel, every failure, feedback, every betrayal, a reminder that the only one you ever needed to count on was you. You don't crave easy anymore. You crave real, and real never comes without resistance. Nightmare mode isn't the absence of fear. It's walking through fear with your chin up and your fists ready. You've cried in silence, screamed into pillows, limped through workouts, battled demons that never spoke, but always lingered. And still, you kept going. That's nightmare mode. That's your zone. Let them look confused. Let them laugh. Because the very thing they fear, you became it. They call it obsession. You call it precision. They call it too much. You call it not enough. They call it extreme. You call it standard. Because your standard rose with every hard choice. Every day you didn't quit. Every night you didn't sleep because the work wasn't done. You stopped hoping and started building. You stopped praying for less pain and started preparing for more. And that's what no one wants to admit. Most people don't hate the grind. They hate who they are in it. You faced that mirror. You faced that weakness. You shattered it and built something unshakable. That's nightmare mode. That's who you are now. It's lonely here, yes. But you'd rather be alone and on fire with purpose than surrounded by the lukewarm. You'd rather be doubted and dangerous than liked and average. Because at the end of the day, when it's dark and no one's watching, you know you did what others couldn't. Not because you were stronger, but because you stayed when it hurt. You moved forward when it was unclear. You kept swinging when your arms were heavy and your heart was hollow. They'll call it luck one day. They'll pretend they supported you, but deep down you'll know this wasn't luck. This was pain, discipline, focus, and a refusal to turn that damn switch off. You didn't find a way. You made one. You didn't wait for light. You became it. You didn't get rescued. You climbed, crawled, bled, and dragged your way through every storm. And now, you've built something no one can take away. Your mindset, your edge, your legacy, forged in nightmare mode. So when they ask again, who activated nightmare mode mid-match? You won't have to answer. Your presence will. Your eyes will. Your pace will. The fire in your chest will, because you're not here to explain. You're here to dominate, to endure, to evolve, to remind the world that pressure doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. You walk differently now, not with arrogance, but with certainty. Not because life got easier, but because you got sharper. You carry your pain like armor. You wear your scars like signals. You don't ask the world for mercy. You ask it to step aside. Because the road you walk isn't paved. It's carved, day by day, mile by mile, with nothing but grit and refusal to give up. You didn't flip nightmare mode on for the applause. You did it because the old version of you had to die, because survival wasn't enough. You wanted to thrive in the place others feared to tread. You stopped asking how long it would take and started asking how far you could go. And now you walk through storms with a grin, not because you enjoy the pain, but because pain speaks truth. Pain shows you what you're really made of. And you're made of more. More resolve, more control, more unshakable commitment to the process. You no longer negotiate with weakness. You no longer waste time chasing temporary relief. You're past that. You've built habits that make average effort impossible. You've turned your routine into a rhythm of relentless forward pressure. You're always moving, always hunting, and always growing, not loudly, but absolutely. Most people fear the grind because it exposes the difference between intention and identity. They say they want it until it costs sleep, comfort, validation, normalcy. But you've paid that price again and again. And with each payment, you've gained something they can't see: clarity, power, internal stillness. You don't flinch when it's hard anymore. You lean in. You don't fear the dark. You train there. And now when they ask you what your secret is, they won't understand the answer. Because your secret was always this: you didn't quit. When it was hard, when it was empty, when it was silent, you didn't need the lights. You became the pulse in the void. You became the reason something moved when everything else froze. And that, right there, is why nightmare mode became your normal. It was never about intensity. It was about identity, about who you chose to be when the pressure came, when the doubts shouted louder than the dream, when the comfort of quitting whispered lies. You stared it down and said, "Not me, not today, not ever." You rewired what pain meant. You redefined what progress felt like. You transformed the word discipline from something forced to something sacred. You've gone so far down this path now that quitting isn't even an option. It's not even part of your vocabulary. When others search for motivation, you build momentum. When they wonder if it's worth it, you remind yourself, it was never about being understood. It was about being undeniable. That's why you kept showing up. That's why you flipped that switch and never looked back. You've already walked through fires that would incinerate most people. You've already carried burdens that would break backs and wills. And what did you do? You didn't just survive. You studied them. You learned how to breathe in the smoke. You learned how to lift with shaking hands. You taught yourself how to move forward with blood in your mouth and purpose in your lungs. That's nightmare mode. That's the realm you now rule. You stop caring about how others perceive your pace because you know they don't see the whole picture. They see the result, not the nights you spent bleeding for inches. They see the wins, not the wounds. And that's fine. Let them misunderstand. Let them think it's talent or timing or luck. You'll never waste energy defending your discipline. You'll let your consistency do the talking. You'll let your silence do the shouting. You've reached a point now where even rest is earned, not assumed. You don't waste energy seeking praise. You use every ounce to sharpen your next move, to plan your next push. Because you know momentum isn't given, it's built. And you've become a builder, a creator, a machine of controlled chaos that doesn't just operate under pressure, but prefers it. Let others flinch. Let them tap out. Let them dream of shortcuts while you continue laying bricks in the dark. Because when the lights do come on and the game is on the line and everyone is watching, you're not going to flinch. You're not going to fold. You're going to dominate. Quietly, ruthlessly. Because you trained for this. You suffered for this. You bled for this moment. And you're going to own it. You see, nightmare mode isn't about being fearless. It's about being fear-trained. It's about walking into the worst day of your life and handling it with grace and grind. It's about holding yourself to a standard that terrifies average minds. It's about not needing a win today to feel like a winner, because you know the long game. You know the work compounds. You know the real prize isn't just success. It's who you become through the struggle. You've become a guardian of your own greatness, a relentless worker in the shadows, the one who doesn't seek attention, but commands it when it matters. And they'll keep asking who turned the nightmare on. They'll keep waiting for you to shut down. But that's never gonna happen, because you didn't come this far just to ease up. You didn't endure all that pain just to pause. You're here to go all the way. You're here to leave nothing on the table. This isn't motivation. This is a lifestyle, a contract signed in sweat, a promise to yourself that no matter how hard it gets, you will not retreat. You will not bow. You will not break. Because nightmare mode isn't just where you train, it's where you thrive. And if they can't handle the intensity, that's fine. It was never meant for them. You are proof that pain has a purpose. That struggle can be sacred. That pressure is a privilege. You are the reason someone else is watching and wondering, how are they still going? And they won't get it, because they didn't make the same sacrifices. They didn't flip that switch and watch their old self die. They didn't step into the chaos willingly, fully, and say, this is where I build my legacy. But you did. You never turned it off. You never needed to. Because somewhere deep inside, you realized that nightmare mode wasn't a punishment. It was a gift, a crucible, a forge, and you stepped in, not to escape it, but to become something through it. And now, here you are, still standing, still swinging, still building. Not because it's easy, not because it's fair, but because it's necessary, because it's who you are now. So let the world ask again, who flipped nightmare mode mid-match? Let them wonder, let them watch. Because the answer's simple. You did, and you never turned it off. So now you've reached the end of the line, not the end of the mission, but the end of excuses. You've walked through every storm with the weight of the world on your shoulders and never asked for it to be lighter. You just got stronger. Nightmare mode wasn't some phase. It wasn't a moment of madness. It was your awakening. A declaration to the world that you were done waiting, done hiding, done shrinking yourself for people who would never carry what you carry. This is who you are now, disciplined, unshakable, dangerous in your silence, and unrelenting in your focus. Because you know something they don't. You know the grind doesn't get easier. You just get more precise. The chaos doesn't go away. You just learn how to operate inside it like it's second nature. And while the rest search for comfort, you'll keep showing up in the darkness, calm and clear, because that's your territory now. The fear they feel, you trained with it. The pressure they run from, you made it your home. And when everything around you crumbles, you'll be the one still building, not louder, just better, not faster, just forever. So if anyone ever dares to ask again, who flipped nightmare mode on mid-match? Let them know it wasn't a glitch, it wasn't an accident, it was a decision, your decision, a switch you flipped when the world counted you out. And no, you're never turning it off, not until you finish what you started, not until you've carved your name into the world, not with noise, but with legacy.